All righty, it's good to be in the Lord's house tonight. Glad to be here, say amen. All right, just making sure. If you have your Bible tonight, go to the book of 2 Chronicles, 2 Chronicles chapter number 22. As the Lord's given me liberty here to preach what we were going to preach this morning. It's amazing how the Lord works on that. I thought I was going to preach it this morning, and then as folks started testifying, I flipped over to another passage and thought I was going to preach that, and then the Lord changed my heart again and said, you just sit there and be quiet and let me do what I want to do. And I said, yes, Lord. But He has given us the ability to come back here tonight and see what He's got for us as we continue to preach through some of these folks that you'll find over there in Matthew chapter number 1. Some more individuals here in the lineage of Jesus. But I want to point some things out tonight. And by way of introduction here in a moment, we're going to pull something up on the screen. I'm going to walk through a little bit of a family tree. Because you're fixing to notice as we get into the text here that all these folks have got some weird names. A lot of them have got the same names. A lot of them got more than one name. So it gets real cloudy real quick. So I want to try to help us tonight to understand what's going on in the text. So I want to point some things out real quick. I promise it won't take too long. But as I was studying on this and looking at it, I kept having to go back and reread it over and over and over again. And I was like, my goodness, I can't get this straight. I need something to look at. So I made us something to look at. Lord willing, it'll be a blessing and help to us here tonight. But in 2 Chronicles chapter number 22, y'all remember as we've talked about Jehoshaphat, he did some good things. And the last time we preached along these lines, we talked about how did this happen. Y'all remember that message? Judah, how has this happened? How did we get here? How did this take place? And I was talking about how good it was with Jehoshaphat. And then Jehoram, when he comes on the scene, he inherits the kingdom. Things go so bad, so quick, to the point to where at the end, the Bible tells us that he departed and pretty much he wasn't missed. When he died, they didn't care for him. They didn't miss him. They didn't bury him with the kings. They didn't burn him with honor. They didn't do none of that. They were just glad for him to be gone. They pretty much said, good riddance. We're sick and tired of you, because the kingdom is so bad under Jehoram there. You'll find him in chapter number 21. But here in chapter 22, Jehoram has died. He departed without being desired in verse 20, then chapter 22. And the inhabitants of Jerusalem made Ahaziah, his youngest son, king in his stead. Now Ahaziah here, if you'll look back over to verse 17 of the previous chapter, you'll find that some men from Arabia and the Philistines, they came and they began to kill all of Jehoram's sons. We talked about how they killed all of them but the youngest. And the youngest one there is not named Ahaziah. So what in the world is going on? I wanted to point this out. It says, in verse number 17, there's never a son left him save Jehoahaz, the youngest of his sons. And then in verse number 1 of chapter 22, they made Ahaziah, his youngest son, king in his stead. These ain't two different people. These are the same person. This is where that confusion is going to start. Jehoahaz and Ahaziah are the same individual here. They are the same person, okay? So don't let that confuse you. A lot of folks look at that and say, oh, right there's a contradiction in the Word of God. There's a contradiction in the Bible. I will have you know, if you find something in the Word of God that you think is a contradiction, then you've messed up somewhere. That's just the way that it is. We don't get to disprove the Bible. The Bible just disproves us all the time. So if we see something that's not adding up, don't look at it and say, hey, there's a mistake here, there's something wrong about it. Dig into it a little bit deeper, figure out what's going on, and realize where the misunderstanding is. Well, it's pretty easy to see there. The youngest of his sons in verse 17 and the youngest son in verse number 1, same guy, different names. Matter of fact, you'll look at it and study on it, and you'll find in the old Hebrew, matter of fact, it happens in Greek as well, that there are multiple versions of the same name. Somebody by the name of Timothy might go by Tim for short. Somebody with the name Robert might go by Bob. And I've never understood that. Why you wouldn't be Rob instead of Bob makes no sense to me. But it's the same name. They just kind of have a different way to put it. Trey, his name is not really Trey. He's Trey because he's a third. Okay, and I'm not going to give you his whole name. But anyways, that happens a lot. We have different names for the same individual. So same person here in verse number 1. So Ahaziah, the son of Jehoram, king of Judah, reigned. Verse 2, 42 years old was Ahaziah when he began to reign, and he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Athaliah, the daughter of Omri. Here's the next little issue we got. Go ahead, Brother Matt, bring my picture up if you don't mind. and I'll point some things out to you here. What you'll see here in the text, and I know that's kind of a little bit difficult to see, but I'll point it out to you in just a minute. I want you to kind of get your mind wrapped around where these people are and where their names are coming from and what's going to happen here. So on the left side of that, you see a few of them that are shaded gray up there. That's the line that's ruling Israel. The ones on the right side, that's the line that's ruling Judah. Omri is the very top left name in Israel. He's actually Ahab's daddy. So when it says there in verse number 2, Athaliah, the daughter of Omri, he's not actually her father, he is her grandfather. He's her grandfather here. It's talking daughter is in, well, it's just like all the Jewish people, they call Abraham their father, even 1,000 years down the road, Father Abraham. It's the same type of deal there. This is not the daughter of Omri, but the granddaughter of Omri. So you'll find Omri here at the top left is the daddy of Ahab. Who was Ahab's wife? Jezebel. The wicked Jezebel. Now, it's fixing to split off. There's one that goes off to the left there. It says the ruling sons. These are Ahab's boys that are ruling over Israel. Some of them have the same names as the folks that are going to end up on the Judah side, which will get confusing as well. But we're not talking about them right now. Just know Ahab's line is ruling Israel out here to the left. But Ahab and Jezebel have a daughter. Her name is Athaliah there. The names in pink are ladies. The ones in blue are men, by the way. So Athaliah here is going to be married to Jehoram. Jehoram is the son of Jehoshaphat, the son of Asa. Now, do y'all remember when I was preaching about Jehoshaphat? I believe it's chapter 18. In verse number 1, it says that Jehoshaphat had an affinity with Ahab. Do y'all remember that? And I talked about how that he wanted to be friends with wicked Ahab in Israel. And the way that he accomplished that was he gave his son in marriage to one of Ahab's daughters. Y'all remember that? That's them. Athaliah and Jehoram. Jehoram is coming from Judah, from the good side. Athaliah is coming from Israel, the bad side, under Ahab, and they have become wed there. That's that tie. That's that affinity where these two families have united. Now, we're going to get into it in a minute, but this Athaliah lady right up here, you can call her Jezebel Jr. She's wicked. She's wicked. I started to call her Little A for Little Ahab, but Jezebel Jr. just rolls off the tongue better, and it's easier to remember. She is a Jezebel Jr. Things are about to go sideways here. It's about to be a wicked kingdom once again. But Athaliah here is married to Jehoram. Now, they have a son by the name of Jehoahaz or Ahaziah, the one that we're talking about here tonight. That's him over to the left. And then over to the right, you'll find Jehoshabeth is the sister of Jehoahaz. All right? I know this is kind of getting confusing, but I need to lay this out before we get into the text, or it's going to get real cloudy real quick. So what's fixing to happen here in the text is Athaliah marries Jehoram. Their youngest son, the only son that is left, Jehoahaz or Ahaziah here, the same person in the text, he is fixing to begin to rule. He's the one sitting on the throne. The second one from the bottom on the left there, that's the one that is ruling over Judah right now. He's taking care of things. But you'll find here in verse number 3, talking about Jehoahaz. He also walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, for his mother was his counselor to do wickedly. Wherefore he did evil in the sight of the Lord, like the house of Ahab, for they were his counselors after the death of his father to his destruction. I was studying on this, and I really began to look at it, and this is why I wanted to point all this out and talk about Athaliah being Jezebel Jr. here. What did the Bible say? It says in verse number 3, you got to remember here, Jehoram is dead. He is gone. The only one left to lead Jehoahaz is Athaliah. And who is Athaliah's daddy? Ahab. Is Ahab good or bad? He's bad. He is the most wicked king Israel has had. He is terrible. He has brought all kinds of Baal worship in and all kinds of wickedness into the land of Israel. And now Jehoram, who has a little bit of a good heritage with Jehoshaphat over there, Asa is dead, Jehoshaphat is dead, and Jehoram is dead. Now all you have left is Athaliah and her crowd. You have Athaliah, and then you have all of those ruling sons, the family of Ahab, all these wicked individuals left over to the side. And the Bible tells us that when Jehoram dies, his son Jehoahaz is left there with nobody to counsel him except for his wicked mama and his wicked family on Ahab's side. He's left with nobody to turn to. I began to really study on this and look at it, and that word counselor just kept jumping off the page to me. She was his counselor. What? He walked in the ways of the house of Ahab, for his mother was his counselor. But the verse doesn't end right there, does it? Was his counselor to do wickedly. To do wickedly. I wonder where he would have been and how he would have turned out if not for Athaliah, Jezebel Jr. here, getting in the midst of his life and teaching him all the wicked things he could do. We ought to be careful where we get our counsel from. You see, all this started when? It all started way back when Jehoshaphat wanted to be a friend with Ahab, so he gave Jehoram to Athaliah. That's when the lines began to cross. Y'all remember those famous verses in the Bible that everybody wants to use to try to talk about interracial marriage that ain't applied to that? The Bible says, don't be unequally yoked. Y'all remember those verses there? It's not talking about race, it's talking about that. It's talking about somebody that's supposed to be in the family of God and somebody out here to the side that is wicked and Baal worship, them two linking up, and it's never going to work out. That's what those verses are talking about. That's what their context is there. It's not pointing to anything with race. It's pointing to spiritual side of things. But Jehoshaphat, he didn't necessarily pick for Jehoahaz and Jehoram to go and get all their counsel from Ahab's side of things. He might not have had that idea, but he did leave them behind. There wasn't any more godly influence around him because what did Jehoshaphat do? Jehoshaphat left all the good folks and went to hang out with Ahab. Wanted to be friends with him, wanted to be friends with the wicked. And then when he died and Jehoram died, the only people left for Jehoahaz to turn to was who? The wicked folks that he was surrounded with. The only ones that he knew. The only ones that were there to help him. Now this might be a sore subject, but I put an example on here that I thought might kind of bring it to us today. When your primary source of wisdom isn't available, you need somebody else to talk to, and you often go to your family friends. That's what Jehoahaz has done here. Jehoram's dead. Daddy's gone. He's not there for wisdom anymore. He's not there to ask anymore. So he asked his mama, and he asked the wicked house of Ahab, and they counseled him to do wickedly. Now the sore subject is this. Lane Kiffin. Y'all ain't heard enough about him. I'm sure everybody would love to hear about him for another 6 weeks, and he would hurry up and make up his mind. I think he finally did make up his mind today, but I wrote this before he did, so y'all just leave me alone. But anyways, he made the statement. Somebody asked him about his daddy. His daddy's name was Monty. And they said, who are you talking to or whatever? And he made the statement that he was missing his dad. He was missing being able to go and talk to his dad about the situation. If you don't follow sports, Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss's coach, Florida wanted him, LSU wanted him, Ole Miss wants him, everybody wanted him. I don't want him no more. He hurt my feelings. But anyways, everybody wanted Lane Kiffin, and he couldn't make up his mind. He had a big decision to make. And he wanted to talk to his daddy about that decision, but he couldn't because his daddy had passed away. But he made this statement. He said he was going to call Nick Saban, because he used to coach with him, and he was going to call Pete Carroll, because he used to coach with Pete Carroll as well. And Pete Carroll made this statement. Pete Carroll knew Monty, Lane's daddy. Okay? And Pete Carroll said this. I told Monty, your daddy, that I would always be here to take care of you. So if you call me, I'll answer. What happened? Daddy was gone, but he left somebody there to help his son along the way. What's happening right here, Jehoram, daddy is gone. He didn't line anybody up to help Jehoahaz. There's no godly influence left. There's nobody else for him to turn to. There's nobody to help him. There's nobody to teach him and to lead him in the right way. So he has to turn to Athaliah and Ahab and his wicked sons. He's got to turn to the wicked because he has no more godly influence left in his life. It is our job as parents to surround ourselves with good godly folks, because one day you're going to look up and you're not going to be here anymore. And who will your kids have to surround themselves anymore? Who will be left? Who will be here to help lead them along the way? Now, there's a name for that. There's a label that we put on that. Just say you have some children, and in case something, God forbid, something terrible was going to happen to you, somebody else, you would line them up to take care of your kids. What's the name of that person? A godfather, a godparent. You would line that up. On the off chance that the Lord takes me out of here, somebody's going to take care of my kids, and I want it to be somebody that's a good, godly individual to help raise my kids right. When you pick somebody to be either your godfather or your godparents for your child, you don't go down to the jailhouse or the insane asylum or the rehab and find some crackhead down there and say, I want you to look out for my kids. What do? You find the most responsible person you can. You find somebody that you know is going to love your kids, is going to provide for your kids, is going to carry your kids to church, is going to take care of them and love on them like they were their own. That's what you want, right? You want somebody to take care of your kid. Now, let me throw some Christianity this to you. Did you know the idea of a godparent was actually a biblical concept? It was actually something the early church brought in. Matter of fact, today it's very popular in the Catholic Church. But they don't call them godfathers, they call them sponsors. I don't know if y'all have ever heard that or not. But they have an idea, most of the time now, and I don't agree with this because it's not biblical, but when they have their infant baptism, they have another individual that is not a parent come by and sponsor that kid. The role of that sponsor is to help ensure that that kid is raised right. That means if mom and daddy ain't doing their job, the sponsor's supposed to step in and say, hey, I told you when that baby was baptized that you better raise them right, because that's what Catholic baptism is, by the way. It's pretty much affirming yourself to raise your kids in the Catholic way. That's what they're doing. But anyways, you're supposed to be raising your kid the right way and you're not doing it, and now you need to fix it. He's there to help, lead, and disciple and to push that kid. Now, that's the way the Catholics have spun that idea. But let me give you the original version of it, and I agree with it much more. This idea of a sponsor or a godparent first came about when pagan folks, think the Vikings, think way back when, began to join Christianity. They had somebody that was a sponsor that would come to them and say, I can attest or I can speak for this individual that they have changed, they do love Christ, and they're no longer wanting to be a pagan. They want to join the Christian faith. It's somebody else to help disciple them along the way. It's somebody else to help them as they go, to help them be on the straight and narrow, to help them do right. Let's be honest, we all need somebody to help us do right. Do we not? We all need somebody. I was just talking to somebody before church, and we were having a discussion, and they said, you need to hold me accountable. Y'all got to hold me accountable too. If I get up here and I begin to preach something that ain't that book, somebody better tell me to stop. Sit down and be quiet. And I ain't got no intention of doing that. If I do, it's a mistake. I didn't mean to. Y'all be nice to me. I am human. I make mistakes. But if there's something like that that happens, I need to know. If y'all are doing something like that, I'm going to let you know. I'm not going to do it from the pulpit and make nobody look bad or feel bad. You can handle it with grace. But we all ought to have a sense of accountability because we've surrounded ourselves with good, godly people to lift us up and to help us go in the right direction. Joahaz ain't got that. He doesn't have that. All the good godly influence started with Jehoshaphat over there on the right. He's dead and gone. Jehoram had a little bit of it. He's dead and gone. And now the only person Jehoahaz has to turn to is his wicked mama, Jezebel Jr., and Ahab and that wicked family over there. It's our job to make sure we surround ourselves with good godly folks so that if something happens, they're there to help us up, not to push us the rest of the way down. We better be real careful where we're getting our counsel. We better be very careful who we surround ourselves with and get our counsel from. Now, it goes on a little bit longer here. Let me find myself here. All right. As you go on down through the story, verse number 4. Wherefore he did evil in the sight of the Lord, like the house of Ahab, for they were his counselors, after the death of his father to his destruction. He walked also after their counsel, and went with Jehoram. Now here we go. The son of Ahab, king of Israel. Here's you another Jehoram. The Jehoram right here that it's talking about in verse number 5 is not his daddy Jehoram, because his daddy is dead. All right? Jehoram from the Judah side is dead and gone, but over there Ahab has some sons. One of them is named Jehoram as well. There's your double name that gets confusing. All right? So pay attention. Pay attention to your Bible or we're going to get lost here. He walked after their counsel, went with Jehoram, wicked Jehoram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, to war against Hazael, king of Syria, at Ramoth Gilead. And the Syrians smote Joram. Same guy. Jehoram, Joram. Same guy. And he returned to be healed in Jezreel because of the wounds which were given him at Ramah. When he fought with Hazael, king of Syria, and Azariah, the son of Jehoram. There you go. There's the good Jehoram coming back in and making another appearance. Jehoram the son of Ahab at Jezreel because he was sick. So Azariah, the son of Jehoram from Judah, went to fight alongside Jehoram, the wicked son of Ahab, at Jezreel, and he was hit, and he was hurt, and he was sent back to Jezreel to heal up. Okay? Verse 7. The destruction of Ahaziah was of God by coming to Joram. For when he was come, he went out with Jehoram against Jehu, the son of Nimshi, whom the Lord had anointed to cut off the house of Ahab. Now, there's a bunch of preaching here, different book, all right, not different Bible, I'm talking about different books of the Bible, y'all don't get crazy on me. But what's fixing to happen here is Jehu has been sent from the Lord to go and to cut off the house of Ahab because of their wickedness. And what Azariah here has done is he has decided, this is Jehoahaz, Ahaziah, same guy, he has gone to hang out with this wicked Jehoram, and by doing that, he's now guilty by association, and Jehu, who was on his way to kill Ahab's house, is now after Azariah, or Jehoahaz, same guy, he's after him as well. Y'all hang on, I'm going to get to the message here in a minute, and it'll be quicker, I promise. But anyways, he is gone, and he is guilty by association, now the target's on his back. Let's see. Whom the Lord appointed to cut off the house of Ahab, verse number 8. It came to pass that when Jehu was executing judgment upon the house of Ahab, and found the princes of Judah and the sons of the brethren of Ahaziah that ministered to Ahaziah, good gracious, he slew them. And when he sought Ahaziah, and they caught him, for he was hid in Samaria, and brought him to Jehu, and when they had slain him, they buried him, because they said, he is the son of Jehoshaphat, who sought the Lord with all his heart. So the house of Ahaziah had no power to keep still the kingdom. All right, now we're supposed to see Jezebel Jr. So far in the text, Jehoram is dead. His son, Jehoahaz, or Ahaziah, he's dead as well. And we finally get to that last name down there of Joash. Joash. Now, this is where I want to preach. I want to tell you some things about Joash. You'll find in verse number 10, when Athaliah, that's Ahaziah's mother, that's Jezebel Jr., that's little Ahab, whatever you want to call her tonight, that's the wicked individual there. When she finds out that her son is dead, she arose and destroyed all the seed royal of the house of Judah. What'd she do? She found out her baby boy was dead and gone, and to keep anybody else from ruling the kingdom, she jumped up and killed everybody else that was of any kind of royal blood. Cousins, half-brothers, anything like that, she has killed them all, because she doesn't want anybody else ruling. She's now killed everybody else that was in line to be the king. She killed all the seed royal. But Jehoshaphat, the daughter of the king, Athaliah, Jezebel Jr., and Jehoram, they have a son, Jehoahaz. They have a daughter, Jehoshaphat. Jehoshaphat here is a great sister. The Bible doesn't tell us if Jezebel Jr. is her mama, but it does tell us that Jehoram is her daddy. So you make whatever assumption you want to there, the Bible doesn't tell us. But Jehoshaphat here, when she sees Athaliah on the warpath, killing all of these kids, killing all the folks that were in line for the kingdom, she goes and she takes Jehoash, the son of Jehoahaz, that last one there. She takes him and hides him so that he can grow up and rule the kingdom. Jehoshaphat, the daughter of the king, took Joash, the son of Ahaziah, and stole him from among the king's sons that were slain, and put him and his nurse in a bedchamber. So Jehoshaphat, the daughter of King Jehoram, the wife of Jehoiada, the priest, for she was the sister of Ahaziah, hid him from Athaliah, so that she slew him not. And he was with them hid in the house of God 6 years, and Athaliah reigned over the land. Y'all lost yet? Can you imagine if we didn't have the names on the screen, how lost we'd be? What's happening? Jehoshaphat, down here to the right, the last woman here, has gone and got her nephew and said, I'm going to protect this boy from the wicked Jezebel Jr. to make sure he grows up, he has every chance he needs to succeed, to walk into the kingdom and to rule the kingdom how he's supposed to. But what I'd like to preach here is this thought here out of the tail end of verse number 12. And he was with them hid in the house of God 6 years. And Athaliah reigned over the land. Title of the message tonight, In the House of God. You see, while he's going to go there, and he's going to be hid, and he's going to be took care of, he's going to find some things in the house of the Lord that we can still find today that will help us, that will take care of us, that will prosper us if we'll allow it to. And I want to show it to you tonight. You'll find evidence of these things later on, but I want to give them to you here tonight. I believe the first thing that he found here was he found safety in the Lord's house. He found safety in the Lord's house. What do you mean, Brother Easton? What does Jezebel Jr. want to do? She wants to kill him. She wants to get rid of him. There are people out there that want his head. There are people that are against him. There are people out there that want to hurt him. There are those seeking after his health. They want to cause him harm. How's that have anything to do with us? That same Spirit's still here for each and every one of us Christians. 1 Peter 5:8. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour. There are folks out there that are still after us. The devil is after us, and his crowd is after us. They're out there to seek and destroy. They are trying to dismantle the church. They're trying to do everything they can to take God's people, to shut them up and sit them down and close them away somewhere. They're trying to steal everything the Lord has done and get away from that and lead us off to follow after Satan. They are after us. He's in the house of the Lord. He has found safety from Jezebel Jr. I'd have you know, if you're in the house of the Lord, you have found some safety tonight from these folks that are after you. Brother Easton, I don't really believe that there's anybody after me. Okay? There's a lot of Christians today that need to open their eyes. Let me put this out there. If you do not see the hand of the devil in the world today, you've got to just have your head in the sand somewhere. It's everywhere in the world of politics. Y'all don't believe me? Let me just go through here. I want to just list some things. Y'all just be patient with me. Y'all remember 10, 15 years ago when all the crazies came out and said that red food dye was causing behavior issues in kids and causing all kinds of ADHD and everything else? Y'all remember when we were all labeled crazy and conspiracists because we thought that was the way it was until RFK came out and said that's exactly what it did? Y'all remember that? What about Epstein? Y'all remember how supposedly on suicide watch, conveniently all the cameras went dead and he managed to hang himself on suicide watch and nobody knew what happened? And then the coroner said there was no way possible that he could have hung himself like that. Do y'all remember that? Y'all remember that? Okay. What about Epstein's list that we supposed were going to get released, but then they still haven't done anything with? Anybody heard anything about Charlie Kirk? Whatever happened to the boy that shot him? What was the name of the boy that shot Charlie Kirk? Anybody remember? Tyler Robinson. I Googled it today. He's still in pretrial. They ain't even made a move on it. But guess what? Everybody was all up in arms about it for 2 or 3 weeks, and now ain't nobody saying a peep about him. Ain't nobody said nothing about him. Y'all remember all the stuff that came out? Oh, there's no way that Tyler Robinson did it because we got a picture of him at Dairy Queen or wherever it was at the same time. He couldn't have made it here, that, and the other. Y'all remember all those conspiracy theories? You remember all that mess that was going on? Y'all remember all the stuff that's been pushed? Let's go a little bit further than that. What about the auto pen scandals going on in the White House with Mr. President Biden? Y'all seen all that stuff? I don't know about you, but something ain't adding up there. Well, let's go a little bit further than that. I hope I don't hit no sore subjects here. What about a COVID vaccine that wasn't tested properly and you were forced to take it if you wanted to keep your job, and they said it's perfectly safe and it'll help you and it'll prevent you from getting COVID only if you get a booster every 2 weeks? And then all these great healthy people are dying and having heart issues and they're pulling out these great long blood clots out of them. All they have in common is the fact they got the COVID vaccine. Y'all remember all that? I'm starting to think y'all might be on board with me on a lot more than I thought. I'm starting to see a lot of y'all are on board with this because y'all feel the same way I do about it. Do y'all not just get sick and tired of that mess over and over and over again? Every time something happens, every time some wickedness takes place, every time you see something that's cut and dry, do something about this and nothing ever happens. Y'all not get tired of that? Am I the only one that has a problem with all the stuff that's going on? Let me say this. What's happening in politics is just the outward expression of what has already happened in the spiritual war. Why is it happening, Brother Easton? I'll tell you why it's happening. Because the devil is at work in the folks in places of power. Prove it, Brother Easton. I'm glad you asked, because I was sitting here locked and loaded and ready to prove it to you. Ephesians 6:12 says this, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." Oh, how about that? it might seem like the devil is going after some folks up and above us and trying to get them all messed up to lead us into a wicked way as well. How about that? No, Brother Easton, that wouldn't happen at all. Y'all remember a fellow by the name of Adolf Hitler? What was his goal? What did he say? I'll go after the kids. He went after the children and convinced them of whatever he wanted them to know, told them the Jews were wicked and they needed to be killed and all those things. And guess what happened? Them folks, hook, line, and sinker, took the bait and they followed him to their death, into wickedness, into genocide, all because of a wicked man in a high place leading vulnerable people. Well, what's that got to do with anything? I'm trying to tell you that just like in the day of Jehoash, when people wanted to hurt him, when people were after him, the church is in a place today, the Christian is in a place today where folks want to go after us. Folks want to hurt us. Not in America. Surely not in America. I don't know if y'all watched the news lately. If you haven't, you're probably happier than folks that have. What happened in D.C.? There's 2 National Guard folks that just shot, right? By an Afghan native. Y'all remember that? Y'all know there's a whole lot of mosques in this country now. Texas is slap covered up in them. And these people preach to kill the infidel. Guess who the infidel is? That's me and you. That's me and you. That's all the people that believe in Jesus Christ. They are being taught and preached in our nation that we're the enemy and we ought to be killed. They're after us. They are after us today. They are still coming after us. But I'm glad when I'm in the house of the Lord, I'm in a safe place. If you're in God's family, you're in a safe place. Psalms 91:1 says this, He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High. High is capitalized there. It's not talking about a high place. It's talking about a high person. Guess who that is? That's Jesus. That's God. A person in a high place. In the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress, my God, in Him will I trust. What's happened for Jehoash here? Everybody else is dead. Everybody else couldn't run fast enough. They couldn't hide well enough. They couldn't get away from old wicked Jezebel Jr. up here. But all of a sudden, this man, he finds his way, or this boy finds his way into the house of the Lord because of his aunt there, Jehoshaphat there, takes him into the house of the Lord, and there he finds safety for what's going on. I find it curious. Of all the places to hide, we'll take him into the house of God. You know why they took him to the house of God? Because they knew Jezebel Jr. wasn't going in there. They knew she wasn't going to step foot in that place. She would never grace the doorways of the house of God. You know, I've heard said that where you go says a lot about you. I would venture to say where you don't go says a lot about you as well. She's scared to death or mad or whatever the reason is, but she ain't going to the house of God for 6 years. But I'd say this too. Everybody else is on board with her. They didn't go either. Because they probably would have heard something or seen something too. That whole crowd is scared to death to go to the house of God. I don't know. A lot of folks have reasons not to go to the house of God. They're not very good reasons at all. I don't know. I don't know if they're scared of conviction. I don't know what the deal is. But I would be ashamed to be somebody that's scared to go to the house of the Lord. Not only did he find safety here, you'll find that he found shelter as well. Safety and shelter is the same thing, Brother Easton. No, they're not. No, they're not. Let me give it to you this way. I love watching survivor-type shows. I just like them. I always have ever since I was little. I like watching Survivor Man and stuff like that. I just always have. I don't know why. I think it's cool. I used to when I was growing up. I'd go out in the backyard with a magnifying glass and I'd catch stuff on fire and I'd try to rub 2 sticks together. Darden was at Mom and Daddy's house the other day and they FaceTime and she had 2 sticks. She's rubbing them sticks together, says she's starting the fire, and Mom's like, where'd she learn that? I said, I'll tell you where she learned that. I had Survivor Man on at the house the other day. She was watching him rub sticks together, catch stuff on fire. Anyways, Survivor Man will tell you when you find yourself in a place, the first thing you need to do is worry about shelter. Because you might get cold and wet and die of hypothermia long before you die of thirst or hungry. It's about shelter. What does shelter do, Brother Easton? It keeps the harsh elements from getting to you. He had safety, he had protection from Jezebel Jr. and her wicked bunch. But not only that, what happened? Why was Jehoahaz, why was he so bad? There, the first little part of this chapter. Why was he so bad? His daddy Jehoram had died, and the only person left to take counsel of was who? Jezebel Jr. and Ahab's bunch. He was exposed to some harsh elements. It rubbed off on him, and it ruined his life. Jehoash, if she didn't kill him, what was he going to grow up under? The same type of mess. He was going to grow up wicked too. But because he was not left in that mess and left in that family, and instead was brought over into the house of the Lord, he was raised up around something completely different. He was spared from some of the wicked stuff they had to deal with. The elements of this world are after Christians, and they're taking us out left and right. Left and right. I saw a post one time, and I really like it. I think it really carries an illustration of what our homes ought to be like. The Christian home ought to be a greenhouse. It ought to be a greenhouse. You see, a lot of folks will tell you, you got to raise your kids in isolation, it won't ever work. Because what happens, you raise your kids in isolation and they know nothing about the world, well, the world's going to hit them smack dab in the mouth when they get out of mom and daddy's house, and they're going to be just blown up. I'm just telling you, that's the way it's going to work. But in the greenhouse, it's not a place of isolation, but it's a place where you control what comes in to the house. Think about a greenhouse. It's not there to isolate those plants from the outside world. It's there to keep the temperature just right. It's there to keep the humidity just right. It's there to keep the amount of sunlight just right. It provides what is needed and blocks the rest. So when it rains too much, guess what happens? Greenhouse blocks it. When it's too hot outside, guess what? There's extra water in the greenhouse. There's vents in the greenhouse. There's fans in the greenhouse to control that atmosphere. What's the whole point of a greenhouse? To grow stuff, right? And you want to give it the best chance possible to grow. So what do? You control what goes in. It's a place where you give plants a strong start and prepare them to then be taken and transplanted outdoors. Me and Sue got a garden at the house. I wish I could say it's a great one. We had a good one, and then we had these two little blessings called kids, and it seems to get all of our time that we spent in the garden. We got busy. But you read on those little packs of seeds, especially bell peppers and things of that nature. It'll tell you to start those seeds inside. When they get to a certain size, you take them outside and transplant them in the ground. What are you doing? You're making sure they've got a good start and they're strong enough to survive when they get outside the greenhouse. In our Christian home, we ought to be taking our kids, we ought to be taking our families, we ought to be investing and raising and strengthening and raising up folks to be strong enough to where when they do get out of our house, when they do move out, when they do go get their big boy and their big girl job, when they do go get their spouse, when they do have kids of their own, they ought to be able to stand because they've already got that good, strong foundation. But sadly, a lot of Christian homes today ain't no different than the world. And those kids ain't even got a fresh start of nothing before Satan comes by and just slaps them upside the head. Y'all remember the parable of the sower? Y'all remember some of that seed there? Some of that seed went by the wayside. Some of it was on stony ground. Some of it went over here. And what did the Bible say? The fowls came and ate it up. Y'all remember that? And then some of that other was planted and it sprung up. And then the thorns and the briars and all that mess grew up and smothered it out. Y'all remember that? What is that? That seeds that is planted and nobody is taking care of them. Nobody is helping them. Nobody is discipling them. Nobody's investing in them. They just threw the seed out and said, all right, I'll check on you later. I hope you bear fruit. And when they show up and the weeds have took over the garden and the coons have ate all the corn and the crows have come in and ate all the seed out of the ground. When all that has happened, they will look at it and say, well, I guess that was the seed's fault. No, it wasn't the seed's fault. It was the person that ought to be raising that. It was the person that ought to be sheltering that. They didn't take care of it. Here, Jehoash, he has safety from those after him, but not only that, by being in the Lord's house, he's not exposed to the wickedness there. He's not exposed to what was going on out there in the house of Ahab. He didn't grow up around this wicked mess. He was sheltered from the outside influence. Psalms 91:4 says this, talking about the Lord. He shall cover thee with his feathers, and under his wings shalt thou trust. His truth shall be thy shield and buckler. What's it talking about? It's talking about when things are tough, when things are hard, when we need somebody to cover us up and to shelter us. The Lord comes in like old Mother Hen, and He's got them wings out, and we're all tucked up underneath there, and He's caring for us, and He's loving on us. But I've noticed something. We got chickens at the house. Our chickens are dumb. I'll just tell you, I think everything I've ever tried to raise is dumb. Maybe I'm doing it wrong. But anyways, it's raining. It's 35 degrees the other night. My chickens have got a Taj Mahal of a coop. Nice big old A-frame thing, got roosting bars, nesting boxes. They get chicken scratch every day. They got 2 things of food. They got oyster shell for the cows. And man, they got anything they could want. They are pampered princesses over here. Man, I went out there and they had a little old 8x24 run. And then I opened it up where they can get in the garden in the winter so they can fertilize and scratch on that. And it's 24 by 40 something foot long. Now they got all that. And then I fenced in behind the coop as well, and they got another section that big. I mean, they got more room than me and Sue do in our house. They got it going on out there. But they, no matter how good they have it, guess where they wanted to roost when it was raining and it was freezing cold outside? Sitting on top of the fence. I went outside to feed the dogs. I turned and looked, and our rooster, Barack, there's a story behind that. I ain't going to tell you when I'm preaching on live stream. If you don't know the story, you can ask me later. The rooster's name is Barack. And he's sitting up there, and normally he's all big and happy looking, and he looked like a little wet cat. He's just sitting there all curled up. I'm like, well, you idiot, you got the coop right there. Why don't you go get in the thing? So I went over there, and I picked him up. When I grabbed him, and he screams or whatever, he didn't know what in the world's going on. I carry him in the coop, and I set him on that bar, and all the other hens turn to look at him like, it's pretty nice in here, ain't it? It's pretty nice in here where you ain't fighting the weather. You're not fighting the harsh elements. You're in a place where you're cared for. You're in a place where you're pampered. You're in a place where somebody is looking after you. I know that's a chicken, but that's what the Lord does for us, is it not? He puts us in a place where the weather on the outside, the storms of life, the problems, the issues. I'm not saying they can't come and they can't batter, but I will tell you this. It's a whole lot better being sheltered under His wings than having nothing. But those chickens, when they have them little babies, they don't walk around with their wings like this all the time and the baby's just right up under them, do they? No, they don't do that. They do that at night. They do that when the hawk is screaming and they're trying to take care of the baby chickens. They do it when problems arise. That's what the Lord does for us. When things come our way, not only do we have safety, we have shelter where He covers us and takes care of us. I got one more I want to give you tonight. There's actually 7 of these, but we're going to stop at 3. I think that'll be enough tonight. You got safety in the Lord's house. You got shelter in the Lord's house. And I'll tell you this, you've got structure in the Lord's house. Structure, what do you mean? I mean he was raised a certain way. He was raised in a structured way. He was raised in a way that would benefit him and help him. Anybody ever had those kids that think they're smarter than you? And you say, we're going to do this, and their first instinct is to say, why? Why we got to do this? And being the great, patient, godly parents that we are, we say, because I said so. Right? Isn't that what everybody likes to say? But then think back when your mom and daddy told you that. Isn't that the answer you love to hear too? Yeah, I know. I've made an effort to not just say, because I said so, to Darden. So I've compromised. Now when she asks a question and says, why? Instead of saying, because I said so, I say it like this. First of all, because I said so. Second of all, then I begin to explain it. So I still get to say I said so. But anyways, then I try to explain why we're doing what we're doing. And it seems to make a little bit of sense to her, and it helps. It's a structured way. But think about this with me if you don't mind. He was safe and sheltered from the world, but he was instructed in the Lord's house. If he had not been in the Lord's house, what would he have grown up around? Idol worship, drunkenness, in today's time, drug abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, all different forms of abuse. What were they doing? What was Ahab and Jezebel? What were they known for? Jezebel and her prophets of Baal. Baal worship contains some wicked things. Some wicked things. By the way, there's a lot of them pagan religions that contain a lot of wicked things. Look up Molech in the Word of God. Look up Molech, M-O-L-E-C-H. Molech, the Bible talks about making your kids pass through the fire, making the babies pass through the fire of Molech. Molech was a big old metal statue. And they would make him, and his arms would be out like this. And they would light fires all around him. They'd get that statue just red hot. And they'd take those little babies, and they'd pass them between the arms and scorch them. That's how they worship Molech. So the Bible's talking about when it says having your kids pass through the fire of Molech. Wicked. Baal worship contained fornication and drunkenness and a lot of wicked things of that nature, and called it religion. Yeah, it kind of sounds like the church of today, does it not? You do whatever you want to do. God made you that way. Everything's okay. And you just say that's your part of religion, and everybody's going to be like, whoa, go ahead. He didn't grow up around that. He didn't grow up around idol worship or drunkenness or fornication, no. He grew up in the Lord's house. He grew up around prayer and praise. He grew up around singing. He grew up around holiness. Who was in the house of the Lord with him? Priest. Priest. Folks living godly and holy. Between Jehoash and his daddy Jehoahaz, they have completely different upbringings. Jehoahaz loses Jehoram, and he's raised by wicked folks. Jehoash, he's raised in the house of the Lord. And because of that, he has some structure. You see, let's go back to that greenhouse. Not only does the greenhouse keep out the bad, but you bring in the good as well. How do you start a greenhouse? Well, you build the thing first of all. And that's fun, hot work when you get to work inside a greenhouse in July. Ask me how I know. It's a great story. Anyways, you get ready to start that greenhouse. Mr. Tim knows what greenhouse I'm talking about, up there on the hill by the dumpsters, the cafeteria at North Pontotoc. If it's still standing, I built it. If it's not still standing, Trey built that one. But anyways, it's still there, rocking on strong. I think they've grown like 3 things out of the last decade and a half. Storage unit now, perfect. That's my life's work. I just want to build it and people just throw their junk in it. But anyways, the greenhouse, when you go to start those plants, we put up the greenhouse, and they built the little planter boxes, and they brought in the best dirt that they could. They planted those plants, and they made sure they had plenty of water, and they fertilized them. They took soil tests. They did all of these things. They made sure it had its best chance of success. What should we do in our homes? Not only should we keep the bad things out of our greenhouse, but we ought to bring the good things in. We ought to bring the things of the Lord into our house every chance we get. Our families ought to live and breathe the things of God. If the only time they're exposed to that type of atmosphere is when they're at the church house, it's no wonder to me why everybody looks so uncomfortable when the Lord meets with us. When everybody seems so out of place when the Lord steps in and does something. The Lord's house should be a place of structure. You see, we got to be careful what we do here at Beulah. Everything we do around here is done for a purpose. Our Sunday school classes, our children's church, all the things that we do it for a reason, and here's the reason. Those kids that we're investing in, the little hellions that are bouncing off the walls, make you want to pull your hair out and all that stuff. Last name Smith running around. I know, I get it. Anyways, those little kids that drive everybody nuts half the time, the ones that think it's a good idea to take a marker and run down the hall and see if they can draw squiggles going up and down the hall, all of those type of things, those little knuckleheads, the little ones that are causing all the grief, they might grow up and turn 13 and decide they know everything and shut their ears for the next 30 years and not hear anything about the house of God, not hear anything about the darling Son of God, Jesus, that went and died on the cross for them. Point being this. Right now while they're young, that's the best chance we've got to raise them right. What's the Bible say? Train up a child. Anybody ever got a dog that's 2 or 3 years old and tried to train him? There's a little saying out there that has something to say about that. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. We all know it. We got to make sure that we're doing everything we can to bring in the things of God into our greenhouse, to teach our kids, to raise our kids in the right way. Don't waste the time that we've got. Don't set them down and tell them something about Jesus for 5 minutes and say, all right, y'all just color the rest of the time. Don't take your Sunday school classes for granted. Get there, get ready, teach, do everything you can to invest in your kids. When you get to the house and you have family prayer time, don't let it be one of those things, Lord, thank you for this day. All right, give us a good night, amen, go to the house. Don't do that. We need to teach our folks how to pray. We need to teach our folks how to do things in the house of the Lord because it's the best time we've got to give them some structure. Jehoash here, he's going to lead some reforms in the land. Where do you think he learned all that? In the house of the Lord when he was young, when he was little. That's when he got his foundation. That's when he got started. I want to say this with the most sensitivity as I can. Big reason churches can't have a big impact in today's time is the pastor is trying to teach the adults things and habits they should have been doing since they were 8 years old. Y'all remember over there telling in the book of John, the Lord's talking to Peter, and he asked Peter the same question 3 times. Peter, do you love me? Y'all remember that? Y'all remember his answer? Peter, do you love me? Of course, Lord. You know I love you. What's he say? First time he says, feed my lambs. The next 2 times he says, feed my sheep. You don't know why? A lot of times it takes us adults twice as long to get it as it does the kids. What's a lamb? That's a young sheep. Sometimes it takes us longer. We got to come to Jesus with what? An adult-like faith or a childlike faith? Childlike faith. See, we've got problems in the church today. Oh, no, church is good. Church is great. I think we would be shocked, terribly shocked and probably ashamed if we really took a test on where we were at in our spirituality. We don't know the books of the Bible. We don't know the Roman road, understand the Roman road is not the only way to see somebody be saved, but it's one that's used quite often and we don't know it. We don't know how to study our Bible. Somebody sat me down. I surrendered to preach before anybody ever took me, opened up the Word of God, and taught me how to dissect a verse and understand what was going on. 20 years old, maybe 21 at that point. Grew up in church my whole life. Nobody had ever sat me down and said, look, you take that verse right there and you read it. And at that first sign of punctuation, you stop. You understand what happened beforehand, then you read to the next punctuation. Nobody's taught us how to study our Bible. We don't know how to read it and make it make sense. We don't know any of these old songs. We don't know how to pray, and even if we do know how to pray, we're too scared to do it in front of anybody else. I was at a church one time, filling in for the pastor, and I asked somebody to pray at the altar. Had no idea he was scared to death to pray out loud. I'm talking a 60-year-old man, scared to death to pray out loud. He said 3 or 4 words, and then he said, I ask that somebody helps me out on the prayer. I'm like, I'd never heard it before. And then I just kind of caught me by surprise. He said, I need somebody to help me out on the prayer. So I guess that somebody was me. So I grabbed the baton in our relay race, and I finished out the prayer. I'll go to a church and preach, fill in for a pastor, and I got to be careful who I call on to pray because somebody's going to be scared to death to do it. Scared to pray out loud. When I was over at Locust Grove, and I've told y'all this before, I told Brother Doug I had 2 goals. I want to see all the kids saved, and then I wanted to give him the best church members he had ever had. That was my goal. I wanted to build the youth kids into that. I worked and worked and worked. We had a bunch of different classes there. We had a nursery class, 1st through 3rd grade, a 4th through 6th grade, and the youth was 7th grade through high school age. And I labeled it out like this in our classes. The nursery class was 90% babysitting and 10% teaching. 1st through 3rd grade was 60% babysitting and 40% teaching. Sue's class was 4th through 6th. It was 40% babysitting and 60% teaching. In my class, the youth class, was 20% babysitting and 80% teaching. All in the idea that when they made it to Brother Doug, he wouldn't have to go back and teach them how to do anything. He'd be able to help them and put them to use. I remember when I was growing up and we would go to the library, and I don't know if it's still this way or not, but you'd go to the library, maybe Allie could tell me. I'd ask Jake, but I know he don't ever go to the library. Only time we went to the library is when we dropped off biscuits to feed the teachers that morning. I love you, Jake. I'm messing with you, buddy. But in the library, there used to be a little sticker on the spine of those books and a different color for different grade and reading scales. Is it still that way? Still that way. And we would go through and we would read, and you were supposed to pick books that were on your reading level. And I remember I was growing and I was reading longer and longer books. I was a nerd in school, still a nerd today if you ask my wife. But I was reading some higher level books, and people would always say things like this. They'd say he's in 5th grade, not talking about me, he's in 5th grade, but he reads on a 2nd grade level, talking about how far behind they are. Does that make sense? And it was a sign of being advanced if you read over the grade level where you are. I wonder if we could grade out our spirituality that way, if where we ought to be matches where we really are. I wonder if an individual that's been saved for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, however long, is acting as spiritually mature as somebody that has been saved that long, or if instead we're still those babes desiring the sincere milk of the Word and can't handle the meat. That's where we are. That's where we are. When I was teaching those youth, my idea was when they graduated the youth program, they'd be ready to step into a role as an adult in the church. We taught them how to study the Bible. We taught them how to pray. We taught them how to witness. We taught them how to prepare and give a devotion. We taught them how to teach Sunday school. Kids? Absolutely. Where else are they going to learn? Some of y'all have taught Sunday school before, and the first time you ever did it, nobody ever told you how to do it, and they just said, you got it, and they just handed you the book and said, figure it out, champ, and slapped you on the butt and said, go ahead. Right? About like one year I was playing ball, and I ain't never played first base since I was in like T-ball. And we had a Monday night team. I need to hurry up. A Monday night team when all the football guys were gone, so in the summer we just played, and you ended up playing different positions. And Coach Anthony said, I need you to play first base. I'm like, God, I ain't got a first base mid. I don't know what in the world to do other than catch the ball and step on the bag. So I'll do the best I can on it. But I won't ever forget, and some of y'all in here that have played baseball will understand what I'm about to do and why it's wrong. If the base is over here and I'm right-handed, my gloves on my left hand, the first ball that was thrown to me, I stretched like this. Anybody see what's wrong with that? That's the wrong foot, because your left arm don't get no further. If you're right-handed, you're supposed to put your right foot on the back, stretch with your left hand so the glove will get out there so much farther. Point being this, I didn't have no clue what I was doing, so I looked dumb out there playing it because nobody taught me nothing. Nobody helped me on that. So I didn't want these kids to grow up one day and somebody say, hey, I need you to cover my Sunday school class, and them go, I don't know how to do that. We had to teach them. We had to work on them. We had to teach them how to write a Bible study. Golly, y'all would probably kick me straight out of the church so fast if I did y'all the way I did them. I showed up there, and I made them draw pieces of paper out of a little old tiny offering plate. And it had their job for the week. And one of them in there was they had to write me out a one-page Bible study on a character in the Bible of my choosing. Yeah, the youth pastor gave homework. But guess what happened? I gave them characters in the Bible they'd never heard of before, and they'd bring me back page-long writing. And they were teaching me things about that person out of the Bible. They knew more about that person than anybody else did because they worked on it. Because they had to learn how to do it. How about this? Brother Doug was doing something there for a little while after he found out I was working and teaching the kids how to prepare lessons and devotions, things of that nature. He took all of our young boys, some of them as young as 11, 12 years old. On Sunday nights, we sang a song and they stood in the pulpit in front of everybody and gave a devotion before he preached. Raise your hand in here if you've ever given a devotion in front of everybody in the sanctuary. Four people. Four people. A lot of folks will be scared to death to do it. A lot of men are scared to death to do it, and we had boys doing it. What's the point, Brother Easton? The point is this. We have a chance to not only keep them from growing up in the world in a wicked place, but to put them in a place of safety, a place of shelter, a place of structure, and train them for what they need to be when they grow up. Because sadly, churches all over the nation today, especially right here in the Bible Belt, they're looking up. They don't have deacons. They don't have song leaders. Nobody can teach Sunday school because nobody has learned how to do nothing. Nobody's studied. Nobody's been taught. And all of a sudden, the church has nobody to help it move forward. All because we never spent the time to train them. We never spent the time, like they did for Joash here, to train him up in the way that he ought to go. Let me give you a verse here. And I'm going to be done, ladies. Y'all want to come on the piano. Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go. In order for us to train somebody in the way they should go, we got to know the way to go to. Train up a child in the way he should go. When he is old, he will not depart from it. You're going to find some things about Joash. He's about to lead some reforms here in the land. Where did those reforms start, Brother Easton? You see, He could have been just like his daddy. He could have just fell right in line with wicked Jezebel Jr. up there and all the wicked folks of Ahab's bunch. He could have lined up with them. He could have taken the kingdom and followed after the folks of Israel and be wicked as could be. But instead, the Lord saw fit to get into his life, to give him an out, to give him somebody in his aunt there, Jehoshaphat, to get him into the house of the Lord, to give him safety, to give him shelter, to give him structure, to turn him into what he needed to be. I sure am glad for a godly heritage where somebody invested in me. Where somebody took the time for a knothead boy to teach me how to read my Bible, teach me how to study, to teach me how to learn to work and to serve. Who makes the best leaders? Somebody that was a good follower first. Somebody that jumped in the trenches, somebody that's learned it, somebody who has worked and done it before they ever got up to the point of trying to lead. Brother Easton, you've been so mean to us, and I'm not trying to be mean to you. I just want to tell you this. We as a church have got to make sure that this church building is a greenhouse. We've got to keep the things out. We've got to bring some things in that need to be here, and we've got to give our young folks the best chance possible to grow up and face the world. Because why do you think all the young people are leaving? Because nobody nurtured them, nobody discipled them, nobody loved on them, nobody invested in them. And when they got old enough to get out of the church house, they left the church house. That's not what I want around here. That's not my desire. Let's all stand tonight, ladies, as you play.